Hello everyone. Today is some more Reddit stories and Minecraft for you guys. Today I have some crazy dating stories. So without further ado, put this video into full screen and get ready for these crazy stories. I started this Minecraft world just barely and it's coming along pretty well. Finally got some iron and some other things done, but I'm going to continue working on stuff and yeah, let's get right into these stories. Alright, this first story is titled Weirdest Date I've Ever Had. It reads About 11 years back, I had met with a girl who wanted to go on a date from a dating website. She seemed very nice, was from Korea, and when we met, she was kind but also very quiet. I had an idea for a restaurant to eat at, but she suggested a different one and wanted to eat elsewhere. Okay, cool, no problem. As we're walking around, literally every single restaurant is full since it's peak time for lunch. So we literally walked around to different places for an hour until ending up at the original spot where I suggested. She finally agreed, and we found a restaurant which was available to seat us. Already, I was a bit annoyed by this, but hey, I'll let it slide. Sometimes people are just picky. This is when things started to get weird. From the start, she spoke English very well and had no issues communicating at all with me. Once we sat down and ordered food, I tried to strike up a conversation with her once she got her dish. Every single response she made when I spoke to her was an sound. I was a bit confused after the first few times, as she would continuously just make this sound. Whenever I asked her a question, she didn't give an answer or speak, just only made that sound and kept stuffing food into her mouth. After a while, I just kind of sat there watching her, wondering if there was some kind of issue. So I just straight up asked, "Is everything okay? You don't really seem to want to talk." She just replied with, "Uh, okay, well, what the heck is going on?" For the next 30 minutes, I just sat in silence as she very slowly ate her meal and then didn't say a word. From this point, I was just about to leave until she finally finished, in which we paid for our meals. Started to head out of the door, in which case I mentioned, "Okay, so I'm going home now. Have a good day." She replied back with, "That was fun. Can we meet up again?" What the actual heck? This girl spent the entire time while eating not talking just to make a weird sound with any questions or thing I said. And now she said it was fun and wanted to meet again. I'm not sure if this girl had some kind of mental illness or some kind of issue, but it was just super strange. Since the beginning, it seemed very normal. Okay, so here are my thoughts on this. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to agree with the writer on this one. This is just a really confusing situation because she is acting super weird. And I guess from there, you'd be like, all right, well, maybe there's something wrong with her. Maybe she has some form of mental illness that doesn't allow her to communicate well. But he did say that the beginning of the date or knowing her prior, she was completely normal, like completely fine. And then after the date, goes back to being normal after being weird for an entire hour, and then says, "That was fun. When can we do it again?" So, like, I don't think it's a mental illness. I don't think she has something wrong with her. My guess is maybe she was just for some odd reason wanting to troll him, or I guess she could have also just been wanting to get a free meal. I don't know. This is just a really weird situation, and I don't know what I would do in this situation. And yeah, I'll get right into the next story for you guys. All right, this next one is a little bit on the longer side, and the title is He Spent the Date Trying to Convince Me That Every Woman We Saw Was Checking Him Out. This guy and I had liked each other on and off for a while. We both came from the same hometown, but had gone to different high schools. A few times a year, it would seem that we'd bump into each other as we rotated in some of the same friend groups, especially in the latter part of high school and after graduation when we started going to get togethers and parties. We'd bump into each other after months and months of not seeing each other, reconnect, and have a great time together. and then go out separate ways with the promise to stay in contact and catch up sometimes. But of course, that would never happen. Life would get in the way and the cycle repeated. This went on from the ages of 16 through 19 when I moved away for college. A year or so later, I bump into him at college. He had worked for 2 years after finishing high school and was now studying. We exchange numbers, have a quick catch up between classes, and he asks if it's okay to go out with me sometimes. Great, I thought. We got along well as friends, and we had both liked each other in the past, so I was looking forward to getting to know him on a deeper level. He texts me about a week later and asks if I'd like to have lunch with him the next day. I agree, and we make plans for the next afternoon. The date started out well. We knew each other beforehand, so there wasn't as much awkwardness or nervousness. We have a bit in common, and the conversation is easy. The waitress comes over and asks if we'd like more drinks, and after she leaves, he asks if I noticed anything about her. I was confused, so I said no. You didn't notice her checking me out? He asked me. She may have done, but in all honesty, I wasn't paying that much attention to her. I was pretty certain she hadn't, but I didn't think too much of it. That was until we went for a walk through town afterward. The restaurant was near the beach, so we went for a walk through town and along the boardwalk. Nearly every woman we passed, he would make comments about her looking at him. Even if the woman wasn't facing us, and if she didn't look at us, she apparently was checking him out. For the next hour, while we walked, I was subjected to comments like, "Did you seriously see that? She was looking straight at me." We went into a small shop to get milkshakes, and he whispered to me after the lady had made her orders that she was checking him out. To this day, I don't know why he was doing that. I don't know if he did this all the time, whenever he was out, or if he was trying to elicit a jealous reaction from me, in the hopes that I would get all territorial over him, therefore boosting his ego. Like, I don't know, but I felt super awkward and he seemed oblivious to me. His only other focus being other women we were walking past, and him trying to convince me that he lives in a world where every single woman was attracted to him. So, there's more to this story, but I'm going to pause real quick to give some of my thoughts. I don't know exactly what this guy is trying to do. So my first thought would be like maybe he's delusional and he thinks actually every woman wants him, right? And if it's the case, then like why is he not a model? Why is he not famous? Right? Like it's clearly not the case. Like there's no shot that every woman is actually checking him out. Now what he probably could be doing too is trying to make the girl jealous, like the girl was writing about. And in my opinion, it's just like, why are you doing this, bro? Like it's very blatantly obvious that you're purposely doing this and it comes across as like really corny or insecure. So I don't really know what his strategy was there, but I'll read the rest of the story for you guys now. All right, this next part of the story says he asks me out again the next weekend, but I declined and told him that I didn't think it would work out romantically. He interpreted this as me admitting to being jealous of other women. I told him no, that was not the case, and I explained that I actually felt uncomfortable with his constant pointing out of other women and how they all wanted to date him. He then took this to mean that I was trying to be possessive of him, and I then again disagreed. We had a bit of a pointless back and forth, with him insisting that I was jealous. I got fed up after that, wished him well, and deleted his number. Yeah, so this guy literally just seems to like take and interpret any and every action a woman takes as her wanting him or her liking him, which is crazy because she said, "Hey dude, I don't like you." And this guy is like, "Oh no, you're just jealous of me." Or, "Oh no, you're just possessive of me." Right? When really he was just being crazy. So like he's probably watched some stuff online that supports his ideas. Like he's probably just living in an echo chamber, but it's crazy. Like he literally thinks anything a girl does means that she likes him. But I'll read the rest of the story because we're almost done. It says the change in this guy from when we had partied together and been friends to when we went out was just incredible. As friends, I had never any inklings or suspicions that he would think to himself that he was a gift to womankind. If anything, it was the opposite. He was just so kind and down to earth. There's kind of a silver lining to this story, as another girl from our college who he had taken on a date messaged me over social media after he had spent their date pulling the same stunt, but mentioning me by name. We got talking, and now we're really good friends and still see each other to this day. Yeah, this is another crazy story. Like, I feel really bad for these people that go on dates because in my last video, it was a recurring topic too. That was similar to the story where they go on the date, and then prior to the date, all their experiences with that person are that they're a good person, they're kind, they're regular, they're not crazy, there's nothing wrong with them. And then after they go on the date, they discover something completely crazy about him because this girl had been friends with this guy for a year, and she had no idea that this guy was, cocky, might even be a narcissist because he thinks every single girl wants him. And the funniest part is she ends up meeting another girl that also went out with this guy and made friends with her. They're like literally like, get a load of this guy because he's crazy. And they literally made a friendship bonding over the fact that this dude is crazy. But yeah, that's all I have for this story. I will get into the next story for you guys. Don't go out with a nice guy, not even once. It starts with a TLDR. Went on 2 dates with a nice guy who believed I owed him compliments and affection because he was nice. So this is from about 4 to 5 years ago when I was in grad school. I've always had a lot of difficulty navigating the dating world, and at least I finally know why. I'm on the autism spectrum, so I have a lot of difficulty with eye contact, interpreting body language and facial expressions, and reading people's intentions. However, at the time, I didn't know I was on the spectrum, so I was super self conscious about my lack of dating experience, was constantly questioning myself, felt stupid, and believed anything that went wrong was all my fault. Alright, and now is where she gets into the actual story. It says, after some encouragement from friends, I signed up for OkCupid and decided to give it a try. I received lots of requests for hookups, which I ignored because that's definitely not what I was looking for. I had some conversations with a few guys, but they were only short lived. Finally, this guy, let's call him R, messaged me and seemed super interesting and charming. His messages were littered with compliments that were nice to hear, seeing that I already had really low self esteem. He also worked as a musician. I was also going to school for music, so it was nice to have that in common. I decided to give it a whirl, and he met up for coffee. So we go to the coffee shop, and he's waiting with a huge bouquet of roses. Spectacle usually makes me very uncomfortable, but I thought the gesture was very thoughtful. He pulled the chair to me, gesturing to take a seat, and we began our date. After a series of compliments, he began to list all of the things he absolutely would not tolerate in a relationship because he was, quote, worth more than that. I kind of figured, whoa, buddy, slow down, this is date one. But I also figured it seemed perfectly reasonable to state what you're looking for and not looking for. So immediately I'm thinking this is really weird, right? Like flowers are fine, but the very, very, very first date, when you haven't talked to the person, is where this is weird. Like, maybe you have the first date and it goes really well and you really hit it off and you really connect. Sure, maybe. I don't know, still maybe not, but maybe then you could potentially bring flowers on the second date. But still, this is pretty weird. And also phrasing something as he's saying he would not tolerate this because he's worth more than that. That just sounds really dramatic. Yes, it's fine to state what you are looking for and not looking for, but saying I deserve this, or I'm worth this, or I'm entitled to this is really weird. And I think this is where it's going to go wrong because I think this guy's just going to be an entitled brat. But I will continue reading the story for you guys now. This next part says, anyway, the date ended. He paid for the coffee, I thanked him, and I agreed to a second date. The coffee date had to be very brief because we had a limited time to meet that day, and I didn't feel like I could get a solid yes or no yet. Once I get home, R sends me a text saying he had a great time and that he looks forward to our next date. I said thank you and that I look forward to it too, and then went to bed. The next day, I go to class as usual. I put my phone on silent or turn it off while I'm in class because, well, I'm in class. Once I have my first break, I took a look at my phone and see dozens of texts from R. They're saying good morning and more compliments, but as they progressed, they sounded very angry that I wasn't responding. I apologized for not responding, but also said that I simply could not text him while I was in class. He called BS on it, saying, "It's not that hard to send a text," and essentially said something along the lines of, "I really should bail on you for being so rude and inconsiderate, but I'll give it another chance since you're so pretty and seem so apologetic." He also went on about how he is such a nice guy and all he wants is to have kindness and effort be appreciated. Since I assume everything is always my fault, I apologized. So I'm gonna pause the story real quick because here is where she went wrong. The last sentence, the sentence I just barely read, says, "Since I assume everything is always my fault, I apologize." This is not what she should have done. This guy was essentially being angry for her not responding over the span of an hour or two. I'm not exactly sure how long her classes are, but he was the one being very immature. He was the one being rude, and he was trying to put that onto her. Um, Now, obviously, if a person's taking days to respond or, 12 to 24 hours, then you could maybe say, you know, hey, like, maybe you were busy today, was wondering why. You didn't read this. I mean, even that is a little bit extra. But yeah, this is just already a bad start for this dude. All right, I'll get back to the story though now. Our second date comes and we agreed to do something outdoors since I was dog sitting. Okay, after that, I would probably cancel the second date, right? Like, this guy is expecting her to apologize when he was the one being rude, and they're still going on the second date. I think she should have canceled it after that whole scenario. But let's continue. He said he liked dogs and that he didn't mind, so we went to an outlet mall where they had plenty of places to sit outside. The whole time we were walking, I noticed that he refused to walk next to me and mostly stood very close behind me. He kept shifting around, and I noticed he'd move himself to essentially act as a shield anytime another guy was anywhere near me. I asked him about it, and he responded saying he's old school and was simply interested in looking after my safety. Seemed odd since I'm literally walking a very large dog in public and in broad daylight. I felt like I was being treated like I was made out of glass the whole time. All right, so for this guy, if you're old school, bro, like, I don't care. That's fine. But she has a big dog with her. Like, context matters. Like, you can calm down. Like, I think this is a really big overreaction on his end. I don't know if he's doing this to impress her, but clearly it's just, like, weird. Like, it looks corny. Like they're trying to talk, and he's not even at her side. Like, he's walking behind her. That is really weird, and it is also embarrassing for his date. All right, she continues to write and says, "Once we get to where we're eating and sit down, R opens with a barrage of concerns he has about me. He starts by saying I've insulted him by accepting all of his compliments without returning the favor with compliments of my own. He said he didn't feel he deserved this because of how nice he had been to me. Being the naive idiot I was, I thought it somehow made sense. I internally screamed at myself for being rude since R is not the first person to accuse me of being rude for something I didn't even realize I was doing. He also said that since this was date two, he was making an investment. Yes, he actually said that, and that I needed to do the same. He told me that even though we weren't official, that he expected any women he went on more than one date with to be exclusively seeing him and nobody else. He didn't want to put in the money and the effort if it meant she'd only pick someone else. I was literally being talked to like I was a child. I didn't say anything at the time because I actually felt like I was in the wrong and I completely froze. Alright, so for me, this is really painful to read just because this is so obviously red flag after red flag after red flag over and over again. And you do have to take into account that the writer does have autism. So, as much as I do say that I am autistic sometimes, I'm definitely not, right? This writer actually has autism, and so it can be hard for her to pick up on social cues, and this is just a nightmare scenario for a person with autism because basically she's being gaslit into believing that she's the problem. And this guy is very possessive and over invested too soon, right? This is only the second date, and it's not even the second date. They said the first date was very short because they had to do something else. And so they're not even really like two full dates into this, and this guy wants exclusivity. That's crazy. All right, so now I will continue to read this story. Once we finished eating, I offered to split the bill with him since I didn't want him to feel he needed to pay for everything. That's actually smart because this guy was saying earlier that if he's going to invest in a girl, he wants exclusivity. Now she's avoiding that. So I like this. I told him it would make me feel better knowing I contributed. R responded by saying no and that I could contribute by showing him the appreciation he, quote, deserved. After the date ended, I felt completely burned out and exhausted. A few days later, I went to lunch with some of my guy friends who had lots of questions about my date. I didn't really want to talk about it since I was embarrassed and confused, but agreed because they all seemed so excited. I asked for as much dating advice as I could since I felt like I had no idea what I was doing and that I felt like I was disappointing R. When they asked me to elaborate, I explained what happened. They seemed shocked and super upset. Again, I thought it was me, but to my surprise, they were all pissed at him and explained this was super predatory behavior. They explained to me what a nice guy was and that R was trying to weaponize my misplaced guilt and issues with low self esteem to paint himself as this amazing man that's being victimized and taken for a ride. Needless to say, I told R that I didn't think it was going to work out and no longer wanted to see him. Of course, he complained that nice guys finish last and that I wasted his time and money by leading him on. I'm much more verbal now with my friends if something doesn't feel right and aware that if I have to constantly talk about how nice you are, you're probably putting up a front. So, yeah, nice guys, never again. All right, so this is actually a very good turn of events. So she ends up meeting with her guy friends, and they somewhat force an answer out of her and try to ask her about the date, try to tell them about what happened. And so she ends up getting a second opinion and advice from her guy friends, and fortunately, they're able to break down what's happening and give her some advice. Right? If this didn't happen, how long or how bad could have this situation got, right? They were able to give her advice and then break down that this guy was being manipulative, right? So it's really good that this happened right after the second date and there wasn't that much commitment there. But yeah, really, it's just like if you're a guy, you should never be a nice guy. And I know being a nice guy sounds like a good thing, but if you're doing normally, nice guys are doing it for something in exchange, and that's manipulative, right? And I don't think this guy gets the point. Like the point is to be kind. It's to do these kind gestures and not expect anything in return. So clearly, this guy seems to be entitled to some form of attention or commitment from women, which is really weird. Like, it's a weird mindset to have. But yeah, that's all I have for this video. If you guys want to leave a comment, that would be greatly appreciated because I am a small YouTuber. I will try to respond to every single comment. So if you have any questions, just want to share your support, definitely leave a like and a comment.